Morning, Rich Woods. If you ain't awake, we might want to check your pulse because we should be concerned. I want to say this before we get started. Maybe this is your first time here, or maybe you used to attend here years and years and years ago, and you've come back for the first time in a long time, and you're like, well, this is different. Welcome to Rich Woods. We have a deep desire at Rich Woods to not just do American church. And maybe some of you don't even understand what that means, but most of my experience of church on and off has been come, attend, listen, piffy little message, leave, repeat. And sometimes wonder if I'm like, man, I don't even know if I believe the guy or girl who just spoke. And we talk about the presence of God all the time. And so here at Richwoods, what we feel God has led us to do is to ruthlessly seek the presence of God. That song is not just a song for us. It is actually a cry of our heart. We're not just saying revival and outpouring for fun. We actually really, really want him to look down on Peoria, the whole entire community, and say, wow, they want me here, so I'm going to go there. And we are begging him to come, and we are waiting for that to happen. Right here or the surrounding area, we don't care where he comes. He can pick any church he wants, but we definitely wouldn't mind if he invaded our midst with his presence. So if you see and hear the cries of people's hearts and all of that, that is intentional. It's not intentional for you. It's intentional for him. We really want him to know that we really, really would like it if he'd show up in our midst and do something beyond our comprehension. And so just wanted to say that. If you're new with us, what a time to join Richwoods. It's an incredible thing that God is doing here. And we are going to finish today a series that we've been in called The Sabbath. And we've been talking about what the Sabbath is. In case you're not familiar with the word, it is a 24-hour period, 1 day a week, that we don't just take a day off like everybody else. God actually commanded us to take Sabbath, and he invited us to take Sabbath as a gift from him. It is a time to prepare our hearts and our minds to stop, rest, delight, and worship for 24 hours. We want to live in that frame all the time, but God wanted a day of the week where the people of God would say, this day right here is carved out for you, and I'm going to stop my work. I'm going to rest my body, soul, mind, and spirit. I'm going to delight in the things of God and the things that bring me joy and delight, and I'm going to worship God through all of it for 24 hours. And we've been exploring what that looks like. And last week, we did the first 3 tools to help you accomplish that. We wanted to make it practical for you. We're going to continue that journey in our wrap-up of this series today. But I wanted to remind you quickly, through my own experience, how we can utilize the tools that we talked about last week to do the Sabbath. Because it can be really a simple thing to do, but we can make it super complicated very, very fast. And so last week we talked about 3 different things we need to do to take a Sabbath. We need to prepare, communicate, and realization. We need to have preparation, communication, realization. The first one is preparation. And so I took a Sabbath 7 days ago. I've shared with you that my Sabbath is Sunday evening to Monday evening. Last week, it was 7 p.m. Sunday evening. I target 5 p.m., but life didn't allow that. And so I started at 7 p.m. and went till Monday at 7 p.m. And some of the things that I had to do for that day of Stop, Rest, Delight, and Worship is I had to prepare. And so I decided that my Sabbath was going to begin at 7 because I had some work stuff that was going to push it a little bit later. I made sure that all my email, texts, and social media were prepped and done for 24 hours to make sure that, hey, everything is set where it needs to set. I can leave it alone. And then I did any necessary chores or errands were completed by the end of day Saturday so that Sunday I could Sabbath. It takes preparation to Sabbath. If you just wake up and say, today I'm going to Sabbath, let me just tell you, you will fail. You will fail, I promise. It takes work to stop working because work is attached to us now everywhere we go. It takes preparation to prepare the mind to stop. Okay, and so I prepared for that. Then it takes some communication. And so in my life with my family, it takes a schedule for Sabbath that is organized and understood by the family. Me and my wife, Jenna, we communicate about how her Sabbath is going to look and how my Sabbath is going to look, because we don't take Sabbath at the same time because we have different schedules. My wife's Sabbath is all day Sunday. Okay, Sunday morning from about 4:15 a.m. when I arise all the way till about 3 o'clock is not good Sabbath time for me. I am on work as much as work can be done, right? And so that's my stretch. So I start Sunday evening when she is finishing hers, so we have a crossover. So we communicate about how that's going to look, and me and her try to have clarity around the next 24 hours. Then you have to do some realization, and this was the last one I shared last week, that we need to understand the chapter of life that you are in, and that all of our lives are not created equal, right? We've all got different things. Some of us have wee little kids, some of us have big kids, some of us have no kids, some of us are retired, some of us are widows, some of us are single parents. You have to realize that season so that you know how you are going to Sabbath. So for us, we understand that kids will probably have needs on Monday. If you don't know this, I have 5 children, okay? There is no day completely off with 5 children, right? It's just impossible. So we have a communication about what are the needs of our children and who is going to do them and how are they going to get done. But we understand that during that 24 hours, they're going to need some things, and we need to realize that. We also have dogs that will need care. We have a dog named Gary and a dog named Penny. Gary's a golden doodle, about 60 pounds. Penny's an 11-pound Maltese. And here's the thing. Penny is diabetic. It's the saddest, cutest little thing ever. She has to get 2 shots a day, one in the morning, one in the evening. And so we have this realization that that's going to fit into our schedule. You can't just say, well, I'm going to Sabbath from the dogs too. She's going to die. Like, that's how that's going to work in the name of Jesus, right? And so we need to have that realization, okay? Now, today I'm going to share 5 more tools with you. But before I do that, because many have asked, what does your Sabbath day look like? And let me just tell you, I love to be creative, and all Sabbath days do not look the same. But I'm going to share with you my Sabbath day from last week, okay? So my Sabbath began at 7 p.m. on Sunday night with a simple dinner and a walk with my wife, Jenna, okay? And what you're going to see in my Sabbath is times of stopping, times of resting, times of delight, and times of worship. And I'm going to identify each one of them for you. So starts with a simple dinner and a walk with Jenna. That is stopping. I started my Sabbath at 7 p.m. with just stopping, having a meal, and enjoying time with my bride. After that meal, we did a little ice cream date trip to Culver's, and you know why? Because I looked up their flavor of the day, and it was double strawberry. Yeah. You know why it was double strawberry on my Sabbath? Because God loves me more than everybody else. That's why. Can deal with that. It's the flavor of the day. So we hit that, went to bed. I slept in till about 6:30. That may not be the chapter you're in, and that may not be delight for you, but 6:30 is sleeping in for me, right? This morning it was 4:15. And so I get up, I have coffee because it's the first cup of coffee is on my joy list. I slide into the secret place with my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and I have time reading a really good book. You know what all that is? It's worship. It's worship. So I've already, by 6:30 on Monday morning, I've already stopped, I've already delighted, I've already worshiped. And then I stop again. I'm on my way to a golf outing that I'm playing in last Monday out in Pekin, so I have 25 minutes to stop and call my mama. Hi, Mama. She watches every Sunday. And I hadn't talked to her for a little while, so I'm like, I'm going to stop. I'm not going to listen to a podcast. I'm going to call my mom. Then I did a golf outing for the Heart of Illinois United Way that I'm on the board for. I played that golf outing with good friends and some new connections. Golf for me is a delight. For some of you, you're so bad at it, that's not a delight. I'm good enough at it that it is a delight to me. On the way home from my golf outing, I didn't just drive home. I took that as a time to worship. So I turned some worship music on that deeply speaks to my soul, and I worshiped on the way home. See how simple Sabbath can be? I just turned my truck is on my joy list, by the way. I turned it into a worship center. From there, I watched episode 1 of season 4 of The Chosen. I watched that up in my bedroom alone because I love solo time, and I slid right from episode 1 into an hour-long nap. Yeah, come on. You know what that is? That's rest. Rest. Next, I did some more delighting by checking on my kids, and then I had a savage upper body workout and a 1-mile run around my neighborhood. I love working out. It brings life to me. I worked really hard in my basement gym that afternoon, and I just felt really good about everything that was going on. Then I made dinner for my wife and kids, and it brought me deep delight. You can make dinner, or you can make dinner and delight. And so I made dinner and prayed for my kids and wife, not anything more than I'm just glad I have kids and a wife. And so I made dinner for them. Then we ate together, which doesn't happen in my house because I have teenagers and they're just gone all the time, right? You wish when they're little they would go away, and then when they're older they go away and you wish they would come home. That's how it works, right? And so they're all home and we're enjoying laughter inside our kitchen, and our good friend Maddie, who's friends with my kids, was there as well. And so she joined in with our family, and I stood in the kitchen while all of my kids and a friend is there, and it became this just act of worship in my heart. I just looked at how beautiful my dining room had become. I concluded my Sabbath at 7 p.m. with 1 iced oatmeal cookie. Not to ruin my workout, I had 1, and a TV show with my bride, and that was delight. 24 hours filled with stop, rest, delight, and worship. No work, no email, nothing that sucked anything from my soul. And you know what all that looked like to me? It looked like what Jesus said in the New Testament when he said the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. Now, should you take my Sabbath and do that tomorrow for your Sabbath? No, you should not. Chances are you're working tomorrow. Chances are many of those things do not bring you delight. Many of those things do not bring you worship. Many of those things don't sound like stopping. They actually feel like doing. That's why the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. And I wanted to share that with you just to show you, one, how easy it is and also how difficult it is. Do you think my phone wasn't going off on Monday? It's always going off. I just didn't have it. You think my email wasn't filling up? It's always filling up, especially after Sunday morning, right? Always. But you just didn't have it, okay? It takes preparation. Now, I want to give you the next 5 tools to help you practice Sabbath. And tool number 4, we did preparation, communication, and realization. Number 4 is anticipation. To do an effective Sabbath, I believe you need to have anticipation. And here's the anticipation. It is and can become the best day of your week. You know what brings me deep joy at 9:46 on a Sunday morning? Is that in about 8 hours, I begin another Sabbath. Oof, I can't wait. See, we used to, and Christians shouldn't do this, but we used to, and most of culture still does, we live for the weekend, right? We go to a job we hate, we have a family we don't care much for, or it didn't pan out the way we wanted, we have a life or finances that we wished were better, and so the only hope we have is that Monday is going to speedily get to Friday, and I live for the weekend. And that's not how God intended his followers to live. We no longer live for the weekend, we actually can live from the Sabbath. Here's what will happen. I will start Sabbath tonight at 5, 6 o'clock approximately, and I will do it till Monday evening at 5, 6 o'clock. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I will live from the Sabbath, not to the next day, and hope that it's better. That Sabbath will fuel the rest of my week. And by the time I start to get weary in well-doing in our culture, I can already see the Sabbath in front of me. I love what Angela Carter, an English novelist and storyteller, says. She says, anticipation is the greater part of pleasure. Anticipation is the greater part of pleasure. We know this. You ever scheduled a vacation and then counted down the days for it? If you've ever been to Disney, you know this is true. Every time we go to Disneyland, we have a countdown because the happiest place on earth is coming. I have a countdown because I'm going to be broke after we go, but that's a different countdown, right? Anticipation is the greater part of pleasure. They actually have done studies that show if you surprise someone with something, they actually get less joy out of it than if you told them weeks in advance and they got to anticipate it coming. It's true. I'll give you an example, a little thing that shouldn't have happened but did. I love new pairs of Nikes. Boom, right? Love them. It's on my joy list. And so for Father's Day, my wife bought me a new pair of Nikes. It's not these ones, it's a different pair. Well, I came home from work one day, and there was a box sitting on the front stool a week before Father's Day. And I went and got it because, Amazon comes to our house every day, just like yours. And I went and picked it up, and it said Jenna Manbeck on it, and the box on the outside said Nike. And I was like, ooh. She wouldn't have bought shoes without telling me unless it was for me. Now, here's the bad part. She got them as a surprise on Father's Day, and I already know about it. And so she's upset. You know what I live in for the next week? Anticipation. What's inside the box, right? Because my wife, she ain't letting me see. I already ruined the surprise by picking up the box. But I lived in anticipation. Sylvia Townsend Warner, a novelist and poet, said, anticipation of pleasure is a pleasure in itself. When you just take a day off like everybody else, what are you anticipating? It's just another day filled with chores, filled with baseball, filled with all the things. When you have a Sabbath that is going to be stop, rest, delight, and worship, you can have the pleasure of the pleasure that is coming. Now, I want to talk about anticipation real quick because you may not think much about it. Anticipation is looking forward to something that is set to happen in the future. It's sitting on the edge of your seat. It's watching with eyes wide open, waiting for the scene in front of you to unfold. It's that feeling you get right before you do something and you don't know how it will go, but you're optimistic and excited. Now, let me tell you the difference between anticipation and expectation. I learned this week. With expectation, you have a picture or an idea or a set standard you are holding in your mind that you expect, it's built into the word, to happen. Check this out. Most of the time, expectations are not exactly met. They're either let down or exceeded. You ever think about that? If you have an expectation, you've already decided what that should be. And almost always, your expectation is either a letdown or it exceeds it. You know the best way this proves itself out? Restaurants. There are two kinds of people who suggest restaurants. There are Peoria locals who are terrible at it. No offense to you. And there are transplants like myself. And we know what good food truly is. Okay? Because we've left Central Illinois, okay? Yeah, that's right. Amen, my brothers, right? Okay? So when someone tells me, hey, this restaurant's the best, the first thing I ask is, where are you from? And I set my expectation accordingly, okay? Now, if Jeremiah, who's not from here, tells me something, my expectation is much higher, right? It always is a letdown or exceeding. Anticipation is not that way. Anticipation, check this out, scripturally, is the very essence of hope and faith. Anticipation is the very essence of hope and faith. Philippians chapter 1, verse 19 says this. Paul was writing to the Philippians. Don't miss this. He's writing from prison. Not a nice prison, an awful prison. He's chained and shackled. And he says, for I know that through your prayers and the help of the Spirit of Jesus Christ, this, my imprisonment, will turn out for my deliverance, as it is my eager expectation and hope, anticipation, that I will not be at all ashamed, but that with full courage, now as always, Christ will be honored in my body, whether by life or by death. My encouragement when it comes to practicing Sabbath is do what Paul did. Have expectation and anticipation. Expectations may be let down or exceeded with your Sabbath, but anticipation will always bring you joy and pleasure. Tool number 5, participation. And I wanted to say this to you because some of us may take our life circumstance or our life situation and say, that Sabbath thing is for pastors. That is not in the Bible. Matter of fact, in the scriptures, there's nowhere that God says Sabbath is only for a certain group of people. He never says that it is for a certain group of people who have a certain job or a certain lifestyle, or they're only this busy, or they're only this full, or they have actually no kids. Those people can Sabbath. Sabbath is for everyone. If you are in the room or online listening, Sabbath is a gift from God and a command from God to you. 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 In Exodus chapter 20, he says it this way, remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor. Okay? God's even kind enough to say, you can work 6 days. Work 6 days. We do the 5-day-a-week thing, right? Many of us, right? I work about 5.5, sometimes 6. Right? Work 6 days, that's fine. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work. But check this out. God says it doesn't stop with you. You or your son or your daughter or your male servant or your female servant or your livestock or the sojourner within your gates, God said everything rests on the seventh day. Everything stops on the seventh day. Everything finds delight on the seventh day. Everything worships on the seventh day. He says, for in 6 days the Lord made the heaven, earth, the sea, and all that is in them, and he rested on the Sabbath day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. In Acts chapter 13, God is at move in the church of Antioch, and it comes in this little verse that can be easy to miss. Is right at the end of the chapter, and it says, the next Sabbath, almost the whole city gathered to hear the word of the Lord. Now, we just sang about revival. Imagine in Peoria and the surrounding communities that we had this kind of testimony. And I know for many of us, that seems impossible. That seems like something that is in the Bible and that's just never going to happen again. It'll never, ever be the case that the whole city gathered, almost the whole city gathered to hear the word of the Lord. And if we keep living the way we're living, Jesus followers, this won't ever happen. But if we show them a different way, that's what was happening in Antioch. These people were so crazy about Jesus that the whole city, it didn't say the whole city believed in God. It said that almost the whole city gathered to hear the word of the Lord. Because when they see us living these radical, authentic, unbelievable lives, they're like, let me come listen. I think it's a little bit of what's happening at our church. We're in the dead of summer and this room is full, y'all. Why? It's not because of the preacher. It's because God's presence is in the room. God's presence is in you. God's presence is working through your life. And you're talking about secret place and Sabbath and being an apprentice of Jesus. And people are like, that's weird. I want to hear. Right? Now, God did command it. So I want to ask yourself, if the Lord commanded it, then why are you disobeying it? If the Lord commanded Sabbath, then why are you disobeying it? And I mean that without condemnation. I mean that authentically. Like, why would you disobey it? And here's what I think. We need to explore inside of us what doesn't want to stop. Because I think the problem could be, well, I'm just too busy. I can't stop. My business, my career, whatever needs me all the time. I don't think that's the problem. I think the problem's inside. Something inside of you is telling you that that's true. We say it all the time around here. Our pastor of care and prayer, Pastor Marty Hunt, is on a 6-week sabbatical. Marty's been here 24 years. How do you function without Pastor Marty for 6 weeks? It seems like we okay. I mean, these folks are sitting in his seat. Didn't even care. Didn't even put a little picture of him to hold the spot. We just kept moving, right? And here's what we say all the time. We can do it without you. It's just better with you. We can do this thing for 6 weeks without Marty. It'll be better when he gets back. The world can do it without you, and it's also better when you get back in it. And so ask yourself, what inside me won't let me stop? What am I afraid of that won't let me rest? Some of us are afraid of silence because God might speak, and we don't know what he might say. It freaks me out about the secret place. It freaks me out. I got to share with you this because I feel like the Holy Spirit is telling me to. It wasn't in my notes, so off script is always dangerous for me, but I'm going to step out and do it. I took a walk this week here, and I went this way toward the trailer park community that's behind us here. I was just praying and worshiping, having a little secret place time in the middle of the workday. You know what God said to me as I walked around? There was trash all over the ground, like litter and different things. God spoke right to my heart, and he said, it's a shame your church is right down the street, and this looks like this. So I started running to see if I could outrun God, and it didn't work. But some of us are afraid to stop, rest, delight, and worship because we're afraid what God might say. God hit me right between the eyes. Says, man, you know you could have done this walk with a trash bag and loved on this community and made it look better. They are a sand wedge away. You know. Some of you don't even know what that means. That's all right. It's all right. God still loves you. Tool number 6, consecration. This isn't a word we use a lot, even in Christianity anymore. This word means set something aside for God. That's what consecration means. It means taking something and setting it aside for God. And this is a tool that is built into the Sabbath. When you take 24 hours and you say, God, this is yours. Believe it or not, you're actually doing it right now. You consecrated an hour and a half on Sunday morning to God. You didn't think about it that way, but you gave God this time, willingly or unwillingly. You're here. In Joshua chapter 3, verse 5, the people of Israel are getting ready to cross the Jordan River, a huge moment in their spirituality and journey with God. And Joshua comes to the people and he says, consecrate yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do wonders among you. So here's the definition of consecration: is devoting or setting apart anything to the worship and service of God. Here's my favorite definition of the word consecration that we need to realize as the people of God. Here's what consecration means. It means removed from common use. And here's why I love that. Because we, as sons and daughters of God, if you are a follower of Jesus, you just didn't pray a prayer, but you said, I want to follow the Lord all the days of my life. You know what's true about you? You have been removed from common use. You've been removed from it. The Bible tells us that when we were in our sin, we walked according to the course of this world. We followed the principality of powers in the air. Satan was our daddy. John chapter 8, verse 44, right? We did what he told us to do. We did what our flesh told us to do. We consumed whatever we wanted. And then God redeemed us, pulled us out of that muck and mire, set us upon a rock named Jesus, and said, now follow me, and I consecrate you from common use. If you are a follower of Jesus, let me just be the mirror for you today and tell you you are no longer common. You are no longer common, and you need to stop telling yourself that you're so stinking common. You're not common. You've been set apart. You have the presence of the living God dwelling inside you right now. What we just did together with 40 people on stage is not common. It's not normal. It's set apart. It's consecrated. The church of God, there's 300,000 to 400,000 of them in America. It should never, ever be common. When you take Sabbath, you know what you do differently than the rest of the world? You do what uncommon people do. How, with your role, with your title, with your family, with your finances, how are you able to take 24 hours and do nothing but things that bring you and the Lord delight? Well, because I've been removed from common use. I don't do life the way you do it. Because someone pulled me out of the slavery of Egypt. He pulled me out. And this is what Joshua was telling the people of Israel. We're going to cross this Jordan right here. You know why? Because we ain't in Egypt anymore. We're not like everybody else. We're going to cross this because tomorrow God's going to open it up and we're going to walk on dry land. So set yourself apart. Paul said this when he invited us to do it with our bodies in Romans 12. You know what Paul says in Romans 12? You are removed from common use. He says, I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship, because your bodies are no longer used for common use. They are used to make kingdom ripples for the glory of God. You didn't just sing songs and smile and enjoy worship this morning. You lifted sweet incense to the God of the universe. You've been removed from common use. Peter describes Christians like this. He says, these are Christians in general. These aren't special Christians. These aren't the best Christians. These aren't the most incredible Christians. These are just what Christians look and sound like. He says, but you, if you believe in Jesus, are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for his own possession, that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. Once you were not a people. You were just like everybody else. But now you are God's people. Once you had not received mercy, but now you have received mercy. Beloved, I urge you as sojourners and exiles to abstain from the passions of the flesh which wage war against you. You know why he tells us to urge? He urges us to abstain from the passions of our flesh because they're not worthy of us. They're not. If you wrestle with porn, it's not worthy of you if you're a child of God. It is not worthy of you. It is not worth your time. It's just not. And we walk around so common. We are walking children of God. And when we Sabbath, I believe it shows our neighbors a different way. It shows our companies a different way. C.H. Spurgeon said this. He said, I have now concentrated, I got consecration on the brain. I have now concentrated all my prayers into one. And that one prayer is this, that I may die to self and live wholly to him. That word holy is complete, totally consecrated. Watchman Nee said, with complete consecration comes perfect peace. So I want to ask you this question that is a difficult question. What in your life is consecrated to God? What is set apart? We talk about money. We hate talking about money, but we talk about it, right? Is any of your money consecrated to God? Don't even get into like, oh, here we go, the church wants my money. That is not all what this is about. I'll preach that sermon another time. I'm talking about, is any of your finances consecrated to God? He wants 100%. But do you carve out anything that, like, this is a gift to you? Use it to make kingdom, right? We talk about it being 10%. We lean more at Richwoods into cheerful giving so that whatever brings you life to give that percent. I would encourage you, if 3% brings you life and 10% is oppressive, give 3%. How about Sunday mornings? 90 minutes, door to door, right? Lord willing. You know what that is of your Sunday? 6%. 6%. And I hear it all the time. We've missed church for a few weeks. We've just been really busy. 6% of your day. 90 minutes, door to door. Is anything consecrated, right? How about the secret place? We talk about getting in the secret place and spending time with God. If you spend 1 hour in the secret place, that is 4% of your day. 4% saying, God, this is yours. That's an hour. How about Sabbath? Because that's what we're talking about. You know what one day is? It's 14% of your week. You still get 86. You still get 86 for all the things. It's 14% of your day. What in your life is consecrated to God? You're like, this is yours and nobody else's. We want revival now. We have to have a list for that question. Revival won't come just because we're shouting it through a song. It'll come as our community sees a remnant of unbelievably radical to them lives. It actually should be normal to us, right? Tool number 7 is execution. The bottom line is eventually you just got to do it. You just got to do it. You just got to say, okay, I'm going to Sabbath. And I've talked to so many of you that are having conversations with your spouse or with friends that when we are wrestling around Sabbath, we are trying to figure it out. And I praise God that that's true. We prayed into that. Whether you are single, married, you have a family, whatever your status is, remember this quote that we shared last week that I know resonated with you. It's from Layla Akita. She's a Ugandan woman who wrote a really good book. She said, every stage of life is a chapter of a book. Where you are right now is your chapter. Don't make that chapter your life. It's just a chapter. Too often we make the chapter the entire book, and we live in despair because we don't like the chapter. Where are you at in life right now? And then execute the Sabbath. 5 kids, 2 dogs, all the things, right? That needs to be figured out so that I can execute the Sabbath. Now, I'm going to break this down a little bit for you to help you because we wanted to be practical today. First thing I would do is choose a time frame. And can I just say this? I learned this about health and fitness, that if you walk a mile, it's better than 0. If you eat 1 healthy meal a day, it's better than 0, right? If you spend 1 day a week with God in the secret place, it's better than 0. So many of us are like, I'm going to read the Bible in a year this year because it's only 3 chapters a day. But if you've been reading 3 chapters is impossible. You know, because you fail about day 21. Instead of just getting in and saying, you know what, something's better than nothing, so I'm going to read a verse. I'm going to read a verse a day. I'm going to lay the bar of achievement as close to the ground as possible. So when it comes to Sabbath for 1 hour. Because you know what 1 hour of Sabbath is? Better than 0. But some of us will hop into 24 hours, whole day, I'm going to do it, God. And we get 3 hours in and we're instantly on our email and phone because addiction is hard to break. So set something you can do. Schedule 1 activity for every Sabbath category. I do this every week. I make sure that in the next 24 hours, Stop, Rest, Delight, and Worship shows up somewhere. And it's scheduled. It's set. That will get me to stop. That will get me to rest. That will get me to delight. That will get me to worship. I at least make sure I cover it. Do that. Find joy in things you have to do. Let me just tell you this. If you have young kids or you have kids in sports, okay? How do you Sabbath when I'm at the baseball field 7 days a week? Let me help you. Your kids playing baseball is going to have to bring you joy. If it doesn't, you have a bigger conversation. Because you'll never Sabbath, right? Well, those people should just stop playing baseball. You fight that fight. I'm done with it. I'm not going to tell dads and moms to not be good parents. I'm just not. I would have loved if my father was at all my things, right? So why not take that thing that you have to do and make it a thing that brings you delight? Find joy in it. Right? Man, I work 7 days a week, and I don't control my schedule. I have a boss. Okay. You're going to have to Sabbath on your lunch break. You're going to have to Sabbath in the 5 hours you're off work before you go to bed. Right? Celebrate even the smallest win. Celebrate it. Celebrate the smallest win. We are so hard on ourselves. So hard on ourselves instead of like, man, I did it. I found this really, really helpful when I changed my health and fitness. I told someone yesterday that I met with in the morning, we were talking about discipline and trying to get your fitness and health in line. It's really hard, right? I failed for 20-some years. I made 2 decisions when I decided that I was going to be a healthier version of myself. Only 2. I said, I'm never having McDonald's again. And that may mean nothing to you, but I was going 4 days a week. Never having McDonald's again, and I'm going to walk 1 mile every day minimum. That's it. It doesn't take a lot of discipline to do that. But I set the bar as low as I could to get me going in the right path. What is the lowest bar of Sabbath that'll help you just get going? I still a year and a half in, haven't had McDonald's. I give my money elsewhere. But here's the bottom line. I think the words of the great and wise Master Yoda are appropriate here. When he said, and this is the heart of execution, do or do not. There is no try. Okay? That's what Yoda said, right? He said we should do or do not. There is no try. And I'm pretty good at that, right? Right? If you don't know who that is, you need to check your life. I don't want to say we're not the church for you, but I would check your life. Right? Execute. That's the bottom line, right? Decide this morning, I'm going to do it. Or don't. Don't leave here, we'll try it. No, God commanded it, and he gave it to you as a gift. Do it. The last one is this, tool number 8 to finish our series. is transformation. Here's what I know. Results increase desire. Results increase desire. A fact. When you begin to Sabbath, the results in your life that you will see from Sabbathing will make you so hungry to Sabbath, you will only grow in it. I told you already this morning, I can't wait to Sabbath tonight. I can't wait. And it's not about being away from work. I love what I do. I love it. I could be up here all day. Matter of fact, according to the clock, I am going to be up here all day, right? But I love it. But I can't wait to be with God. Priscilla Schreier, we looked at her quote first thing when we started this series. It says this: "It is time for us to breathe and build margin into our lives for God. Sabbath was intended as a gift, and it is still a gift to us today. If you are weary, worn out, and exhausted, the concept of Sabbath will change your life." Why do we need Sabbath? I gave you these things the first week of this series. We need Sabbath because we need a sacred space that is consecrated between us and God. We need to be, because our culture is creating human doings. We need to be the human beings that we are. We need 24 hours to be loved by God for doing nothing but the things that bring us joy. And we need more joy. If you watched the TV Thursday night, you know how much joy we need. This quote I wrote on Tuesday, I revisited it on Thursday night about 10 o'clock. In the midst of sadness and despair, you need a refueling of joy from our Creator. Okay? You need a refueling, right? Don't miss this, man. I don't know what the government's going to do. Who cares? We'll pray into that, and God said He's got control. Whoever's in office is dictated by Him, and He'll rule and reign because He's the king over it all anyway. But in the midst of sadness and despair, we need refueling of joy from our Creator. We need it. We need a refueling of joy. And so we're going to sing a song that is about us coming into the throne room of God and be in His presence. His cross tore down the veil between us and Him. That's what this chorus is all about, right? The veil was torn so that His presence was wide open for us to run into it like little children and say, "Daddy, I'm here. You're amazing. Fill me with joy." Okay? The presence of God fills us with joy. So while we worship here at the end, if you need to come up front and get in the joy and presence of God, come up front. If you need to kneel down at your chair and get in the presence of God, let's make this a place where we stop, rest, delight, and worship together. But I want to encourage you, take a Sabbath. You know why? Because it'll refuel your joy tank. Let's stand and worship.